Today we're going to learn about sustainable agriculture and environmental restoration from Anwen Herxthal, co-owner of Tule Ranch in Morgan Hill. Tule Ranch is 48 acres of land that for decades was overgrazed and exposed to pesticides and herbicides. Now it is home to sustainable crops and livestock. We will learn how the owners developed their crops and livestock to not only be sustainable, but how they are helping to restore the environment. We will visit their fruit orchard and olive grove and their pollinators, as well as learn about the role their horses, dogs, 25 different breeds of chickens, baby doll sheep, goats, Highland cows, and alpaca play in keeping the farm and its surrounding environment healthy.
So my name is Anwen Herxthal. I live on a 48-acre ranch with my husband and 2 children. We're just south of San Jose in the Bay Area, and through a series of small miracles ended up with this precious piece of kind of wild land about 5 years ago. So we've only been here a short while. And during our adjustment and coming to love this place, we've really turned towards sustainable ranching and finding ways to strike a balance between livestock and sustainable land management and all the wild creatures that live here. So although we work full-time jobs and have different professions, our real heart and soul job is figuring out ways to sustain the land, repair it, bring it back from hundreds of years of overgrazing and pesticide use, and learn who lives here, how we can support their habitats and ecosystems, and how we can blend their lives with the livestock and the humans that live here. We have different types of livestock on the ranch that we have brought in over the years, and part of the decision behind inviting different creatures to live with us on the ranch and choosing to steward and take care of them has been not just what they give us, but what they return to the land and to the other animals that live here. And so surprisingly, chickens, of which we have about 90 now, serve a really important purpose on the land. They, in addition to the amazing eggs that they produce that the community loves and we of course gobble down constantly, they serve as pest prevention actually. So we have cows and horses and goats, and with those creatures come lots of flies and ticks and fleas. And so with the presence of chickens who sort through every patch of bare ground, every little pile of manure, they sort out larvae and flies and all the other insects that follow the big grazers. And so they're pretty important when it comes to soil management, to manure management, and to helping create compost, which we use their manure for as well. The chickens are of course, live bait for large predators. And as you know, they're little walking cupcakes. They're perfect for coyotes and for mountain lions, foxes, raccoons, skunks, hawks. So that brings this whole other dynamic into the system where you have this lovely prey walking around that's very vulnerable. So because the chickens kind of create this dynamic, we've had to do other things to counterbalance that. And livestock protection dogs, or in our case more like working protection dogs, geese, guinea fowl, alpacas, all serve as guardian animals. And also there's a lot of human smarts necessary in kind of outwitting foxes and the larger predators with fencing and with just secure environments. And so we've spent a lot of time over the last 5 years figuring out how to allow foxes and coyotes and mountain lions, which are absolutely essential to this environment, how to allow them to live with us and to how to live with them well, and at the same time keep all of these little fluffy friends safe so we can enjoy their eggs, and then they can serve the purpose of maintaining soil and producing great compost, and then also getting rid of all the insects. So that's sort of an example of one full cycle of just how the simple chicken plays an important role in our ranch life. Tick, 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 tick. Tick, tick. Come on, everybody. They're a little bit shy right now. So another thing we've thought a lot about in the flock of chickens has been diversity, because throughout nature and planet Earth and humans, diversity creates much more strength in any group of functioning creatures. So with a very diverse group of 90 chickens that has about 25 different species of chickens in it at this point, we have a really kind of well-rounded flock with all sorts of different personalities, all sorts of different egg colors, which is the coolest part for humans because we have rainbow eggs, and people love that. It also just makes for a happier chicken community. So you have different sizes, different kind of strengths and weaknesses. Some chickens are better at spotting predators in the sky, and so they'll send out an alarm call and everybody will run under sheltered safe spaces. Some chickens are better at the insect cleanup. Some chickens are sort of better at the regular egg laying. So there's so much strength to be had in having a wide array of personalities and species kind of blended together. And we extend that to the rest of the animals on the ranch as well. The more variety we can add in, the healthier sort of habitat or ecosystem the ranch becomes just within the livestock, and better quality of life for everybody. You can see these different colored eggs, and different types of chickens lay different colored eggs. Inside, it's exactly the same egg, but the egg shell can be all sorts of different colors. They can be as dark as like a chocolate brown, or sort of the lighter brown that we're used to seeing, blue, and even brighter blue than this. And then some very interesting greens as well. There's even a kind of pinkish egg too, which is very beautiful. So really fun for people to have different eggs to crack open and eat for breakfast omelets. But again, this represents kind of diversity in the flock and having all sorts of different chicken species that we see add to kind of a happier, more balanced community of chickens. So win-win for humans and chickens. Come on, Boo! Cece! There we go. We have 3 horses here at home, and they're all American Quarter Horse and paint. This is Django. He's an American paint, and these guys are our Heart's Delights. They actually also play an important role grazing. So the grazing of these large creatures, as you can see, fertilizes the ground beautifully. He's demonstrating that. And when they tug on the grass, that actually stimulates root growth. So if we manage their movement across the pastures cleverly and thoughtfully, they will promote healthy grasses. If we don't, they will completely decimate the grass population and turn it into a dust bowl. So managing how these guys graze is really, really important, and we're just getting the hang of that. It's called rotational grazing, and basically that means using them to mimic the grazers that once roamed these lands freely. and flash grazed large regions in sort of short bursts, and then would move on, allowing the grasses to regenerate and to grow. And so grasses do best with that kind of grazer stimulation. And so instead of keeping these guys in one pasture year round, which is what we generally see when we look at cows and horses on land, you'll see very limited grass growth. Our job is to kind of keep them moving and to help the grasses grow, which in turn will provide better food for them and less hay costs for us. So these are a happy quartet of 2 alpine male goats, formerly male goats, and 2 alpaca. Their names are Lewis and Clark, and Shoes and Socks. And the goats, we were sort of a moment of weakness when we first moved here, because how could you not have some goats on a farm? But we didn't know a whole lot then, so got 2 neutered male goats, and they don't really serve any purpose other than wanting lots of cuddles and conversation and affection. But we love them dearly. And their 2 best friends are these 2 alpacas that serve as watchdogs. So they're really, really territorial and aware of everything that's going on in their surroundings. And they will send out alarm calls if they see anything that's out of the ordinary. If they see a different kind of bird, if they see strange cows on a horizon, they're very, very in tune with what's going on in their world. And so they serve an important role too of looking out for coyotes and mountain lions, and sending out alarms along with the geese, along with the guinea fowls, along with the dogs. All together, they really serve as the perfect kind of predator patrol and guardians. And they're also really fun to look at. Also, interestingly, their manure, particularly the alpacas, is like gold. It's really, really good for the soil and good for plants. It doesn't burn plants like chicken manure might. You can put it straight down onto plantings, into a vegetable garden, into a pot, and eventually it turns into just really rich kind of chocolate cake soil. So we shovel that up and move it to wherever we're planting things, and find it really helpful with plantings. About 4 years ago with plain dirt, we have, with lots of blisters and blood, sweat and tears, turned it into more of a pollinator garden. And that's kind of what we're doing across the ranch. So the key is to figure out plant species that flower not year round, but when you have them all together, you have something flowering at every point during the year. And that's how you can support hundreds of species of native pollinators, which originally would have had lots of flowers to forage on, but now that we've changed the land so dramatically over the last couple hundred years, there's very little for them to sustain them throughout the year. And then you put on top of that the fact that we're using pesticides, we're using herbicides, all sorts of chemicals that affect their little bodies in ways that are fatal. So their chances of survival are decreasing, with every passing year. So, if we do anything right on this land, it's going to have to be supporting all the hundreds of species of pollinators that have no food and no habitats anymore, including monarchs, including the bay checker spot butterfly, which is disappearing rapidly as well because their habitats are changing so extremely. So this tiny weeny garden certainly isn't going to make a big dent, but step by step, if we can have plants that they love, plants where they can lay their eggs, where the caterpillars and the larvae can get all the nourishment they need, and that they can congregate to mate, then we're doing something right. So slowly we're introducing more and more species that have all sorts of interesting flowers, and then once you have all the bugs coming, and more plants, soil starts to enrich as well. And so 4 years ago, this was caked clay soil that you just couldn't dig into at all. And now if you were to stick your hand into different patches of growth, you're going to find earthworms, you're going to find nesting tarantulas, you're going to find all sorts of little creatures that are thriving. And so this is part of habitat building, or restoration, I should say, kind of bringing back habitats with native plants and species that birds, insects, and everybody can enjoy and thrive on. Over here we have 3 baby doll sheep, and they're a very small, short species of sheep, or variety of sheep I should say, that first of all are the cutest things you've ever seen, and they're amazing because of their stature, their height. They can't get to leaves and trees, so you'll see them in vineyards and in olive groves, fruit tree groves, orchards, and they're amazing because they keep the grass down or the competing weeds or competing plants under the trees, but they can't eat all the leaves and the fruit, which is important. So the reason we have them is we spent a long time thinking about what would be the best thing to plant and to grow on this land. What does this land want to grow other than the native species that are already here? Something that we could potentially use in the future, maybe help pay off the ranch mortgage a little bit. And olives are a very well adapted tree for this kind of Mediterranean climate. They can deal with the heat, the kind of rough soil, a lot of dryness, really hardy. And so we went ahead and did a whole bunch of research and planted, you can see down here, 70 baby olive trees, 9 different varieties. They're all table olives, different kinds of table olives. And so spent about 9 months prepping the holes, finding the trees, getting them into the ground, setting up cages to protect them from deer or anything else that might get in to eat them, setting up irrigation, and now we have this baby olive grove, which will take a couple years to start really growing and producing, but they're already doing really well. And the baby doll sheep have this important role of coming in and grazing around the trees, because olive trees in particular hate competing plants by their roots. So we have to keep the area under the tree canopy clear of competing plants. Olives hate that, and so the baby dolls will serve that purpose. Although I will say that the baby doll sheep have found their way through the cages on the outside of the olive trees, and have definitely enjoyed a few olive leaf salads. So we're still perfecting that dynamic between the trees and the baby dolls. So far it's worked out really well. The dogs, our pack of 4 guardian dogs, have access to this space so they can protect the sheep from any predators, and the sheep can free range and graze, and we'll wait and see what the trees produce in the coming years. So as a part of figuring out what this land wants to do for us and grow for us, we fenced off this small space and created terraces, and have been trying to figure out what grows really well by doing soil testing and lots of learning about the climate throughout the year, and experimenting with different plants, trying to figure out who does well here. The summers are really, really hot and really dry, and we have a well, so we have to conserve water like crazy and be really, really thoughtful and strategic about who we water, what plants we water. And so that has totally influenced what we're able to grow here, which is why the olive trees are so perfect. So for the first couple of years, we experimented with leafy greens. Who wouldn't want a salad midsummer, cucumbers, all that kind of stuff. And everything did okay, but required a lot of water and a lot of work. In particular, soil work, because this soil is very clay-like and serpentine, so lots of rocks, lots of clay, and because it's been overgrazed for so long, there's not a lot growing in it. It was a real struggle to make stuff grow. So this year what we've decided to do is kind of pivot to a fruit forest and to really dig into the whole idea of permaculture and plant guilds. So you'll see 3 terraces here. Each one has been layered with about 1.5 feet of manure, pure manure mixed with leaves, mixed with branches, wood chips. And you let this stuff sit for a couple months and longer, and if you were to put a shovel into it, you would end up seeing really gorgeous soil filled with earthworms in time. And so that's what's happening right here, is by this coming summer, this is going to be absolutely incredibly rich soil that anything will grow in. And so a lot of thought's gone into how we create soil where there really isn't any. You'll see baby fruit trees that we just put in the ground, and eventually we'll have all sorts of other plants growing right around them. With them, we'll have vines, we'll have legumes, we'll have like lots of clover, we'll have melons and lots of flowering plants. So there'll be all sorts of different plants growing together, creating habitats for insects and birds, and lots of food for humans, and a gorgeous kind of green, lush space that retains water during really hot months. So really excited about this, and putting lots of thought into what we can plant that isn't going to be super high maintenance, and will create a great kind of food-filled environment for all sorts of creatures, including us. And the logs are from fallen oak around the property, not just creating barriers, but also building into the concept of hugelkultur, which is using fallen wood and other organic materials to create soil. So as it decomposes, it creates a really rich growing space for fungus and mycorrhizal fungi and mushrooms and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's what's happening here. So this is Kofi. He's our Highland bull. Highlands are a breed of cattle that are native to Scotland and the British Isles. They're bred to be super scrappy, hardy grazers. They actually would sleep inside cottages or houses with people, real family cows. And the reason we chose them for this land was they're very versatile in the way they graze. They're not like huge lawnmowers necessarily, which is the breed that was here previously, were like enormous lawnmowers. They would just move through the land until there was really nothing left, and their size was enormous. They just weren't very well suited. These guys are happy kind of scrambling around and eating scrub and brush and even poison ivy, or poison oak I should say, and they're just better and gentler on the land. And again, that kind of goes back to this idea of rotational grazing and including animals that are good for the land and good for the plant species. So we brought in Kofi, who is a bull, and 2 cows, McKenna and Neo, and they have had 3 babies since, who are over here grazing. And the long-term plan is probably to move Kofi back to the dairy that he came from up near Sacramento, because we don't want any more babies, and to let this herd of 5 be our permanent fire grazers, because fire is a huge risk out here and they help keep the grass down in a healthy way, and they'll also help bring back healthier pastures in the long run too. Someday it would be great to do milking, but we're not anywhere near that yet. So for now, these guys help prevent fire, they help restore the pastures, and they're just pure eye candy also. Yeah, yeah. He doesn't really like being touched, but these girls love it. So she's the lead cow, or the alpha, and she keeps her herd organized. Make sure everyone goes everywhere on time, where she thinks they're supposed to be, where the best grass is. She's the brains of the operation.